A small but very engaged audience, so thank you.
Indeed, yes, we will do our best to at least give you something reasonably informative today. I've gone retro, by the way. I've got stuff on paper. I feel like I'm the only one here without an iPad with questions on it.
I've got an app here that's helping me.
Okay. Yeah, thanks for coming today. So, Simon, I'm Friend MTS. We're an anti-piracy service provider. Actually, one of our customers is beIN. As we said, Cameron is the legal director for beIN, very busy at the moment. So, I mean, my first question for you, Cameron, really was, how's the World Cup going?
Good question. So, I mean, yes, my title is legal director, but actually I head anti-piracy operations. And I guess a lot of what I have done has moved a long way away from law over the last couple of years, although, you know, law is still a big part of what we do. So how is the World Cup going? Well, people probably remember the issues we were facing in 2018 with BRQ, and I'm happy to say that we don't have quite the same issues this time, which has made it a little bit more relaxed for me personally. But on the other hand, the World Cup always brings a new set of piracy challenges and really brings piracy to a head. So it has certainly been a very busy time preparing for the World Cup. And certainly in the opening stages of the World Cup, we have been extremely busy, seeing all sorts of things, including DDoS attacks and retaliation from the pirates.
But for people that don't know for background, by the way, so beIN, obviously you are, I guess, the premier sports broadcaster now in the MENA region. You are effectively the host broadcaster for the World Cup because you're based out of Qatar.
Absolutely.
This is the biggest deal for you guys, isn't it, really?
It's a big deal, having the World Cup in Qatar and being the official broadcaster for it. It's certainly been something we have been focused on and working towards for a very long time.
Okay. So, looking at the MENA region in general then, you know, with some focus on beIN and the piracy problems that you guys experience, you know, how do you view the region at this time? You know, obviously, those of us that are based in Europe, we see a lot of what goes on in Europe. I'm based in the UK, so even though I cover certainly the whole of the EMEA region, a lot of what I see is the UK, and you know, we are always discussing the US. You know, MENA is, for a lot of people, slightly out of sight. You know, what do you think is unique about the situation in MENA?
Look, there's a lot of commonality between all the regions of the world with piracy, and particularly internet piracy. So, you know, in many ways we're dealing with similar issues to other broadcasters, and, you know, we work very closely with other broadcasters. I mean, I have very good relationships with Sky, for instance, and we discuss strategy and what we're doing a lot and get a lot of collaboration. But what I would say about MENA is the issues there are particularly acute. You know, we are broadcasting across the whole region and broadcasting in territories where you have very weak legal regimes, which contributes greatly to the issues. And we just have a lot of very sophisticated pirates. There's a lot of history of piracy in the region going way back to satellite piracy and control word sharing and all of this sort of thing. And it provides a very strong foundation, I guess, and a culture of piracy in the region, which makes what we do very challenging.
So you mentioned the satellite problems of a few years ago. Obviously, I think it's fairly well documented, BRQ and the like. How have you seen the landscape changing, though? You know, have you seen it evolve beyond that? Yes, you know, certain services were shut down. Do you see pirates changing their approach? You know, do you see more app-based piracy, more IPTV services, you know, versus, like you say, control word sharing and dream boxes and these kind of things?
It's all about online. Everything is moved online. It's all about IPTV piracy. So certainly in some parts of MENA, it's still a satellite issue because that's the nature of those markets, but that's changing very, very rapidly, and all the pirates are moving online. It's an IPTV problem. So, I mean, I would say we have three key types of piracy. We have IPTV piracy. So these are the apps that provide thousands of channels, and that is incredibly established across MENA, and there's certain very big players in the piracy world who offer those apps. Then we have the websites, and for reasons that I can go into, those websites tend to feed off the IPTV services. So they are not sourcing their streams directly from our platform. They will be sourcing their streams from the IPTV services. And I should actually say, those IPTV services are sourcing from what I believe, very good evidence to support that, is actually quite a small number of pirates who are able to be the source of our streams and feed that landscape. And that's to do with technology and the sort of measures we've taken. So we have the sources, then we have the IPTV services, then we have things like the streaming websites. There's probably about 100 very popular pirate websites who are taking streams from IPTV services and then re-embedding them and restreaming, but ultimately just from a few sources. And then we have the problem on social media. And again, those social media sources tend to be taking streams that are ultimately coming from the IPTV services.
And I think a point about the IPTV services as well, they are predominantly channel focused, aren't they? Now, you as a beIN Sports, you're a channel broadcaster. You have 16 sports channels.
Yes.
You know, you're a licensee of the Premier League, but you are not the Premier League. Mm-hmm. Pirates don't just steal the Premier League, they steal everything from you, don't they? They steal all 16 channels, put all 16 channels on their services, along with Stan Sports and NBC Sports and BBC Sports and Sky Sports and everything else you can imagine, really. Every sports channel in the world is what's appearing there, and you are just one of this massive pool of channels, aren't you?
Yes, it's a linear channel problem. So they are stealing all the properties, as you say, that we have, plus all the production that we put with it, and obviously very high quality Arabic production, and that's what they want. So the Pirates and MENA, they are particularly focused on beIN. So you can tell that the core Pirates, they will ensure, well, they work hard to try to ensure that they have very good quality and stable beIN streams on their service. And then all the other stuff is in there as a kind of an add-on because they want to provide a package that has thousands of channels available. But I would say for a lot of the key MENA Pirates that we're focused on, the core of their service is the beIN channels.
And is it still football?
Football is huge in MENA, so absolutely. Obviously, we have other properties, but most of our focus is on protecting the football content.
Okay, so again, on this notion of yourselves as a broadcaster versus a content owner, content owners have global ownership of content. They ultimately are responsible for things like social media enforcement because they can go to Facebook or YouTube and say, take this down, we own it. You can't do that because you don't own the content. That said, you license content from various content owners. What do they expect of you as a broadcaster then to be doing to help secure that content?
Yeah, so there is clear roles for the different parties to play. When I was speaking at these things a few years ago, we were saying lots about rights owners need to do more, rights owners need to do more. And I would say that the big rights owners have heard that message and have been stepping up. And what do they need to do? Centralised monitoring is very important because, you need one person monitoring the global internet and coordinating things, and particularly on social media, ingesting their video into those content matching tools and coordinating and taking charge of the takedowns, for instance. On the broadcaster side, well, we have a huge amount to do because ultimately our role is to secure our channels. So, it starts with technology, and whether we're talking about our DTH platform or our OTT platform, it's about securing those, and then it's about using anti-piracy technologies like watermarking to go the extra step to secure the channels. But then we have to have a whole anti-piracy strategy that sits with that. The side B of the watermarking coin is monitoring. So we have to have very good monitoring in place. So we are constantly monitoring the internet for our streams, and everything that we find feeds into our watermarking detection processes, and that gives us our picture of the piracy landscape. And then there's the other things that we need to do. So, we have blocking programs. So we work in the countries where we can, and this is increasing. It's increased a lot over the last 12 months to block, have internet service providers block people from accessing websites and IPTV services. And then investigation and enforcement. We joined ACE at the beginning of the year and have been working a lot with them on bringing legal cases, and we are actually starting to see some good results from that. And those things, happening in our backyard, in our broadcast territory, they're the sort of things that we would lead on.
So looking at the monitoring to start with then, we talk about the rights owner, the content owner implementing global monitoring, taking responsibility for that, overarching monitoring for their own content properties. On top of that, then you additionally monitor for redistribution of your channels. What do you do then when you find an incidence of your channel being rebroadcast by a pirate service? You know, what do you have your monitor provider do in terms of notification or enforcement or takedown?
So the monitoring is the key bit. So the monitoring gives us a picture of what our piracy landscape is. And here we have we're monitoring both the open internet, so this is websites and social media, plus we have built a panel of IPTV services which we monitor. Now the key part of that is feeding into the watermarking detection process, and that really secures our set-top box platform and it secures our players. I think we have actually that part of the platform very secure. As a result, most of the piracy you see will be from pirates who are very sophisticated and able to bypass the players and the set-top boxes. So they have essentially exploiting legacy issues, able to leech content from the CDN or bypass the players, the set-top boxes themselves to take the content. So this is part of really one seamless workflow. So we have the monitoring and it feeds into our watermarking detection panel, detection portals, and then when we find sources of streams, then we have a process to kill those in real time. So that's the key part of what the monitoring does. In addition, we still do and put a lot of effort into what I'd call traditional notice and takedown. So we analyse who the internet companies are that are facilitating those streams, so who the ISPs are, who the streaming platforms are, and we send them takedown notices. And my team does an awful lot of outreach to those companies to try to improve takedown compliance and also to work with them to get the pirates to stop using their platforms. So it's still the case that very big companies can be used by the pirates. You know, big American and European companies will be used, you know, household names that we all know, can be used by the pirates to facilitate the streams. However, as a result of outreach, we've really seen that drop a lot. And so where the piracy is tending to shift now is what we call offshore providers. So there are streaming platforms and internet service providers who sit at the backbone of all of this, who have created structures that put them in offshore locations and using shell companies. It makes it, and they manipulate the internet governance system basically to operate anonymously, and for the sole purpose of providing services to pirates and also other people engaged in all sorts of undesirable activity on the internet.
Yeah, so effectively what you're talking about here is what we would term as the non-compliant hosting vendors and infrastructure.
Yeah, exactly. We like to talk about compliant and the non-compliant. A lot of work through outreach has been done with the compliant, and that's netted very good results. As a result, we're seeing a lot of the piracy shift to what we'll call the non-compliant.
Yeah, which is, to many intents and purposes, it can be a dead end at that point, pending a full-blown legal investigation into individuals at that point, which is then very difficult, very expensive. Has to be very focused, but even so, it's a process you have to go through, because if you do ever want to prosecute somebody, you have to show that you've actually asked them to stop.
For a big broadcaster like us, investigation and enforcement is still part of the mix. It isn't the solution to piracy, but if there are no penalties for it, then you won't have any deterrence effect on the pirates. And this is part of our work with ACE, for instance, why we recognise it's very important to do that. It's a lot for an individual broadcaster to take on, so it tends to work better if you do it in a partnership.
So the monitoring, the legal enforcement,
blocking.
That's the groundwork, though. That's the base level.
The base level, I would say, it starts really with technology. So it is building a platform that is secure. And for people in the OTT space, this is a consideration that needs to be built in very early on. I could make an observation about participants. People want to come and talk about security at an event like this. everyone, when they're building a platform, is interested in where is this technology going and how can I do it more efficiently and drive eyeballs to my service and how can I monetize it and all of this sort of stuff. Well, the security needs to be thought about right at the beginning as well, because you need to have, well, for instance, you can do an awful lot to deter piracy, and we have, through very good real-time data analysis. So you need to build that into your platform from the beginning. You need to also have the means to be able to kill streams in real time and take action against abuses on your platform, because those abuses are very often the sources of your streaming problem.
Yeah, I think you've actually touched on something that's, I think it's a growth area, certainly in the anti-piracy space, the whole idea of loosely what you could term business intelligence. It's actually observing behavior of subscribers, both legitimate and potentially identifying illegitimate or illicit behavior and unnatural activities, whether it's by bots, automation. An individual tends not to watch the same channel for 9 months without stopping, in a streaming session.
Absolutely.
So you should be picking up these things,
Absolutely. There is an awful lot that can be done in the OTT space to deter piracy. So for us, because we have our DTH linear channels and then those channels are on our OTT platform, we see it's quite dynamic. When we take further steps to secure our DTH platform and we take steps to basically close the loopholes that we can see the pirates are using to evade our DTH security, and as I said, this is often to do with legacy issues, we will very, very quickly, I mean, it's staggering how quickly it happens, we'll see the whole piracy landscape change. And we'll suddenly see a spike in OTT. And we'll look at OTT and we'll go, yes, that would appear to be pirates leeching from the CDN. And at that point, that's when our log analysis and our data analysis is incredibly important. And we have very good tools in place, and we use AI and all sorts of things now to be able to identify accounts and IP addresses that are abusing our platform, and also other users who could be potentially associated with the pirates, and we can block and stop them in real time. And we see very quickly the OTT source piracy comes right down, because the pirates then will go back and they will look again and they will find a source on the DTH side where they are able to operate more securely.
Yeah, and I think you are taking a lead here in that you are looking at the data you have available to you, but you only have so much data ultimately, and people talk about the scale of piracy, the scope of the problem. Monitoring can tell you how much is out there. It doesn't necessarily tell you how much is being consumed. That's where looking at usage really through the ISP has real value. If you can communicate with an ISP, give them the ISP insight into where are these pirate services. The monitoring tells you where the IP addresses are of the servers. The ISPs can then look at how many of my subscribers, potentially paying TV subscribers, are actually trying to access these pirate services. That's very valuable information for them.
Yeah, if you could have access to that information, it would be very valuable. In our case, it's been very difficult to get access to that sort of information, but when you do have a window into that, yes, you do get an idea of the amount of consumption of pirate IPTV and pirate services, and it tends to be huge. We rely on much more traditional market survey methods to be able to determine the size of the piracy problem, and generally that shows that it's huge.
So just going back to the CDN as well, I think it's worth making a distinction between the two predominant forms of piracy or pirate content sourcing. A lot of commercial piracy is restreaming piracy, and to a lesser extent, it comes from desktop screen scraping, which is easy to do, and you can't stop it. It doesn't matter how much you spend on your DRM or any of your delivery security. If somebody wants to take a game streaming tool and just restream it on the internet, they can. But they need one computer per stream effectively. More traditional or commercial scale piracy tends to be piles of set-top boxes into a little dense encoder, limited power block, no air conditioning, corner of a room, gigabit Ethernet up to the internet. That's very scalable, can be very effective. But that's restreaming piracy, and that's where watermarking comes in. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter how good your delivery security is, you can't stop that, but at least the pirate is having to spend some time, effort, and money in distributing the content. I think what we see more and more of, though, is pirates looking to exploit weaknesses in OTT delivery, particularly OTT.
Absolutely.
What should we be doing about this?
So, yeah, so we have watermarking across our whole platform, and we use Friends product on OTT, and it's been enormously successful in deterring and really preventing set-top box and streaming-based piracy. So what you describe, we don't really have the problem of the casual pirate. That's not what we're really dealing with, because the type of casual pirate you will see is someone who will set up an account on Twitter or something, and they will be doing a whole lot of streaming, or they'll be looking to do it on YouTube and monetize the content on YouTube. We do see that from time to time, and we're very effective in being able to shut that sort of piracy down. We don't have a lot of that. As I said, what we currently have is an ecosystem fueled by a quite small number of very sophisticated pirates who are able to supply the IPTV ecosystem, which then in turn supplies the websites and the social media. So it really comes down to these key sources who are sophisticated operators. And we know a lot about some of these, and they're very sophisticated. And again, there's only a few individuals behind it, and they know how to exploit weaknesses in the DTH platform. And it's incredibly sophisticated, and it goes back to the types of skills that were used in the control word sharing days. And then on the OTT side, they are able to exploit the architecture there, and there are lots of potential points of leakage, and they will identify those points of leakage. And this is where tools like the data analysis become incredibly important, because then we can identify the threats and the attacks on our CDN and take action to stop them.
Okay. I think we're down to a few minutes now. We do have some questions come in. Shall we go through these questions, Cameron?
Sure, sure.
So the first question: is the only long-term solution to piracy to ensure much better legal control of hosting providers and ISPs who are redistributing OTT content?
No, it's a mix of things. It's a mix of things. Look, I think we've had a lot of success in MENA, particularly this year and in the lead-up in piracy, in the lead-up to the World Cup, in dealing with piracy. A lot of what we've done has caused a great deal of disruption for pirates, and has rattled users' confidence in pirate services. And as a result of that, we have seen a growth in subscriber revenue, which we can attribute to our anti-piracy actions. So the first thing to recognise is, in the short to medium term, you may not be able to win the war against piracy, but there are battles along the way where you can have significant victories and you can see a positive return from that. And in MENA, we're starting to see that. And it's across the different, and it isn't just about hosting providers, that's part of it, but it's actually across all the different things that we do, from blocking to takedown notices as a part of it, because we can create some disruption there as well. But it's also our watermarking strategy and platform security. You know, we deploy upgraded measures at strategic times to create disruption for the pirates, and it does that. So yes, it isn't just about hosting providers, it's actually about doing a range of different things and strategically doing them at strategic times, and seeing this is a war, but there is a number of battles along the way, and you can win those battles.
And it's disrupt. There's no 100% fix. It's just not going to happen like that.
No, but I think, looking forward, you know, if we start to take security more seriously, and when we're building our platforms, as I said, a lot of the issues that we actually face on the security side, they're legacy issues. They're things that have been around for quite some time that we know about, and it's just difficult for commercial reasons, essentially, to address those. But when you're building a new platform, you've got an opportunity to have some blue sky thinking about that. And I think if you build security in at an early stage and you create the right workflows, that means all the right parts of your business are engaged, and you have a workflow that includes monitoring and being able to take action in real time against piracy, and be able to analyze your user data and your CDN usage and all of this sort of stuff, and build a proper workflow. Actually, I think you can do an awful lot to secure your platform and make it very difficult for the pirates to run a parasitical business off it.
Sorry? One more minute. Yep. Okay.
30 seconds.
Okay, yep. The second question, I'll tell you that in about a month's time when we trawl through the data. We're currently working for FIFA monitoring the World Cup, so it's ongoing right now. We will know in about a month really where the growth has been most significant. You know, we have ideas at the moment, but it's nothing really we can share at the moment. The final question, though, the actual process for monitoring, it varies between vendors. Some in the Asian market are more manual than others. Ourselves for NMTS, we're extremely automated. We use, frankly, the power of the cloud. We don't download the internet, though. We have 15 years of intelligence about what's out there, where we need to go to look for content. You know, we look for specific content, and we know where it's probably going to be, and then we use technology to capture content, automatically capture content, automatically confirm it is the content we care about, and then automatically send out enforcement notices. So it's a massively scaling operation. That's why we work for people like, you know, the Premier League and UEFA Champions League. You know, it's just large volume.
If I can make one comment about that. Absolutely, the automated part of it is incredibly important because we have to do this at scale and we have to do it efficiently, and that's why we work with vendors like yourself to do that monitoring. But there's a parallel thing that has to happen, which is the targeted strategic piece, and it still requires human brains for a concentrated effort. You need to understand your threats, you need to understand who the pirates are, and you need to understand how it is they are getting the content.
And you know the MENA space better than your vendors, frankly. You know.
And there is that as well, yeah, that's right. Because I think otherwise what happens is we just trying to treat piracy as this kind of nebulous thing, or there's all these people out there, how are they taking our content? You really start to make progress when you drill down, you do investigations, you analyze your data, and you start to think, who are these people and how are they actually doing it?
Pick your battles, yeah, very much. Okay, I think time is up. We are here, obviously, till the end of tomorrow. If anyone has any more questions or wants to have a chat in more detail, please just grab us. We're here to speak, so thank you for your time, guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Yep, warm round of applause.